Welcome, everybody. My name is Stefan Timmermans. I'm the chair of the Sociology department here, and I'm absolutely delighted to see so many Soc majors showing up today. We have here a panel of 3 fabulously successful alumni of the Sociology department, and we have a room full of people aspiring to become fabulously successful. So hopefully we can find a way to move one of the sparks over, the magic spark over here. The way it's going to work is I'm going to ask some general questions to get us all started, and we'll just go around the panel, and then we'll open the floor for more questions at the end. So I'll ask each one of the speakers here to introduce themselves and sort of tell us a little bit about what they're doing and how they moved from sociology to where they are right now. You want to start?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Rouse. Right now I serve as Vice President for Diversity, Philanthropy, and Community Affairs at Toyota Motor Sales USA. We are the oldest Toyota company in the United States. Started out as an importer of cars made in Japan. Now that we manufacture in the US, we have a manufacturing headquarters and a bunch of other companies. If you were starting a car company today, you would never organize it the way we are organized, but we evolved that way. So anytime you see anything to do with dealers, TV commercials, all that stuff, that's our company. And I have been there for 31 years. I started my career actually, though, as an elementary school teacher. I was a 5th grade teacher for 2 years. Left teaching actually to go to law school, and then over the summer was thinking about it and realized I was probably fulfilling my parents' dream for me more than my own, and elected not to pursue a law career. Went back to work for a company that I worked for when I was in college for 6 years. And then through just blind dumb luck, I ended up at Toyota. I was working on my MBA in the evening at Cal State Dominguez, and there was a woman in one of my classes who was working at Toyota, and the company that I'd worked for decided they were going to move out of Southern California. I had no interest in going. She said, "You'd probably be qualified for an opening in our department." I'd never thought about the car business. I just gave her my resume, went through the interview process, and got hired, and I hired in as a grunt staffer and worked my way up, and 31 years later, I've been a vice president for 4 years. I've had a great career at Toyota. It has given me an opportunity. As I said, I started out as a staff person in the parts department. I then moved over to product planning, where I had product development responsibility for 3 Toyota lines, the Tercel, the Corolla, and the MR2. From there, I moved to our service department. There, I chaired the task force that developed the service concept for the Lexus division. Moved from there up to market research, then long-range strategic planning. I worked in product public relations, government relations. Each of those jobs lasting a couple of years, but I have been in the job that I'm in now, handling all of our philanthropy and community affairs and the stuff that we do with the outside world for 10. If you're going to do what I do, and I think the background that I got at UCLA prepared me well, you have to be willing to stay in that job for a while, because it's all about building relationships with the outside world, and you don't change seats every couple of years and expect the company to have any credibility anywhere. So I've been doing this for 10 years.
Hi, everybody. I used to sit where you sat, or sitting. My name is Mitch Berman. 33 years ago, I was in a classroom like this. I'm a class of 1978, sociology. And before I even tell you my story, I got to tell you that you're in probably the best major you possibly could have chosen. I know that a lot of parents say, "What the hell, sociology?" Right? Why aren't you an engineering major? Why aren't you a history major? I'm here to tell you that you are literally in the best major you possibly could have for preparing you for any job. You're looking at somebody who had dedicated his life to public service. When I was a young guy sitting in this classroom, I was going to change the world. And I thought sociology was going, I originally was a poli-sci major, but I thought that the teachings of human behavior would serve me better, because I thought I knew everything, and poli-sci was something I already was very well versed in. And so I ended up I was the first student at UCLA to ever go on an internship in the winter. You're looking at the George Washington of the winter internship program. I think it's still going on here. I worked for Ted Kennedy people told me, and this is the other thing, if people tell you that it's not possible, if people try to stop you because you have an idea that nobody's done before, oh, I love that. Don't let anybody stop you, because everybody told me that Kennedy wouldn't take anybody from California, they'd only take Massachusetts, and the person who's running the internship program here at UCLA was an old guy who's no longer here, but he thought that I was crazy and kind of go away, young man, bother me. And I came back 4 or 5 months later with that letter of acceptance saying, now will you send me to Washington and give me the class credit? And they were blown away. So I started that. Then they sent me back in a year's time, and I worked for Congresswoman Yvonne Brathwaite Burke and, in Washington. And I led 20 students. And that started it. I ended up, and don't hold this against me, getting my graduate degree from U.S.A. In intergovernmental management. And I went and worked for the Department of the Interior in the Carter administration, and I got to see this change of going from Republican to Democrat. I'm sorry, Democrat to Republican, Carter to Reagan. And that was very interesting, as a student, it was very interesting to see what happens in Washington when that goes on. I was literally right there. That whole time frame, like my friend and colleague next to me, I tried to go to law school too, and I was just miserable. And that's how I ended up at U.S.A. in the grad program. And I thought I was going to use all that I had learned in sociology, the study of how people talk to each other in business, how they talk to each other in the family, how they talk to each other, boyfriend and girlfriend, how they talk to each other around the wine cooler. There's all these different flavors of how people communicate. And that all came forward when I was doing all these things in public service. And one day, out of left field, and this is the John Lennon line, life's what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Trust me, that's true. Because as I was building this career, trying to get into public service at local, state, and federal levels of government, I worked as Secretary of State of California, registered more students in one weekend ever. It's still, I think, still a record, 250,000 people, because I did things at the Dodgers, the Padres, the Angels, I did all the stadiums. So I thought I was going in that direction. Out of left field, I ended up working for Home Box Office, HBO. I can't even tell you how that happened. Like my friend here, I was going to do government service, public service, for some big corporation, public affairs. That's what I thought I was going to end up going. Nope. Spirits came and got me, and life just changed. So I've done not only public sector work with my sociology degree, but then I got into business. And I was working for Big Blue, Time Inc., in New York and in Los Angeles. And then I helped start up later as the first VP of the Western region, what is now known as E! Entertainment Television. Then after that, I ended up, and these are things that came and got me. I did not pursue any of these things. I was doing my job and minding my own business, making a name for myself, climbing the ladder, doing things that people said you couldn't do. And these companies, these things would just come and get me. And all of you in this classroom, things will happen to you where they will be presented. Things will be presented to you. And sometimes you may turn them down. And other times you may go with it. Trust your instinct. Because I went to the bottom of the world. I went to New Zealand and launched Sky Network. What the hell would a guy from LA with a sociology degree from UCLA be doing working for Sky Network in New Zealand? And it was their first pay TV operation in their history. So we launched that. Then I came back to LA for a couple of years thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? Because I didn't know when I came home. I had 2 children. And I thought, I didn't know really where I was going to go. And sure enough, something came and got me. I did not seek it out. I ended up in Australia, launching what is now known as Foxtel. It's a News Corp pay TV service. It's Australia's first pay television networks. And then after that, again, minding my own business, I got a call to move to Silicon Valley and start up an interactive television company called Open TV. And that company went public. It was crazy. It was during the heyday of all the craziness that was going on with people making money, people who were 20 years old who were worth $50 million. It was crazy. And I was right in the heart of all that. And I was, again, minding my own business. It just came and got me. And then I just kind of started, after that, when you take a company public, you're supposedly smarter the night after than you were the morning before. and all these people want to talk to you. And so I was helping all these various companies start, voice over IP companies, all kinds of high-tech video companies, video on demand. The company I was at called Secor actually launched video on demand with all the cable services in the United States. It was my team that was putting a lot of these boxes with flashing lights and all the cable systems to deliver video movies in your home for $3.99. So, and then I started my own company called Zillion TV, which didn't make it. And it's funny because, you know, you typically fail when you're younger. And this is my first failure at the end of my career. So, and then with all that, my wife of 30 years got cancer and passed away last August. And that was out of left field. So I'm now still in this, call it a river. And I'm just going wherever it takes me. And that's why I look at all of you. Throughout all those stories, sociology has been the foundation of everything I've done because it's about communicating with people. And for all of you in here, particularly with what's going on with Twitter and Facebook and all the sociology that's embedded in those services, it's the greatest time to be a sociologist right now. Couldn't pick a better time in history to be a sociologist with the changes that these new services are bringing to human behavior around the world. So anyway, that's my story.
So I'm Merle Marshall Daniels, and I'm currently a mediator and a facilitator, which really means I do a lot of organizational development work, and an executive coach. But my career began not only here at UCLA with my degree in sociology, but my law degree at Loyola. Started out as a public defender, served a subpoena on NBC and became a lawyer at NBC. Then set up, went from being a lawyer at NBC, wanted to move to the profit side, and went over to Group W Productions, where I helped launch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can hardly believe it. I'm not sure how it all fits, but, and then set up my own production company and produced a series called Happily Ever After: Fairy Tales for Every Child, which is a retelling of the classic fairy tales, but with multi-ethnic images. And in 2000, well, I guess in 1997, alongside of my working career where I was making money, was also a part of my passionate career, which was my volunteer work. And I was very engaged with a couple of things, but probably the most significant was the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And in 1997, I was elected president and ultimately chair of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Which, as you might know, is the organization that gives out the Emmy Awards. And in 2000, I got married. I'd been single for most of my career, and I decided that I had to take all the passion from my nonprofit work and all of the energy that was going into my for-profit work and make a career that would actually sustain a marriage and a relationship that I wanted to have at that time in my life. I was turning 50. And so what I figured out in looking back at my career all the way back to the beginning of my time here at UCLA was that at the core was not the product that I was dealing with, but it was the process that I was really in love with. And no matter what I was doing, it was really about people and helping people talk to each other, being fascinated about the way people work with each other, about the way organizations make things happen, and about how individuals need to be taken care of and take care of themselves and understand themselves and their organizations in order to be able to function optimally, in order to be able to bring their best gifts forward and make things work for themselves, to be able to contribute to the world, whether it's in their work or in their family life or in their civic life. And so out of that came my kind of return to the source, which is why I studied then mediation, which is about conflict resolution, and how to do that. And I returned to organizations and then to the executive coaching. And I want to put one UCLA experience piece in that because I think it was connected with sociology, was also connected to the times, which is that I was here at the time that Martin Luther King died. And the year that Martin Luther King died, there was a course offered at UCLA that had never been offered before by the humanities department about being a black man in America. And it was a course that was organized by the Black Student Union. And that class had speakers that were really extraordinary. It was an extraordinary experience for a nice Jewish girl from the Valley who was here at UCLA to really be exposed to a world that I knew really nothing about at all. But in that, out of that, the night that King died, the TAs, who were all from the Black Student Union, left to take care of the community, to go back to their community and do something important, which was really to hopefully keep a lid on it and make sure that what had happened in 1965 didn't happen again, that we didn't have riots, that we didn't have an uprising of some kind. And those of us who were left behind looked at each other and said, what do we need to do? And we decided, those of us who were not black, that our responsibility was to defeat racism in the white community, that that was our job. And it was in the process of exploring that and what did that mean and what would that look like that we actually created an organization here on campus, became active in various ways throughout the campus, throughout the city, throughout the community. The committee I chaired actually developed curriculum for high schools that was taken into the high schools. And I facilitated a weekend of an all-black and an all-white high school to help those kids talk to each other. Teachers, students, and administrators. I facilitated with no background in training, but that really, if you look at the thread of my career, is what showed up at the end. And that's how I've become who I am now.
Thank you. Neal, we're introducing ourselves. If
Okay.
you could just say who you are and how you got here from sociology on or through sociology.
Okay, I apologize for being late. I always thought I was going to be the answer to the trivia question, who doesn't belong on this panel? Now I know because I couldn't find the place. I graduated from UCLA, and I think like most of you, I sort of had a goal. I wanted to be the best lawyer ever, and that was the little spot on the horizon to which I went or guided myself. And I guess if I had to tell you anything that happens in life, it's that you really, that life isn't linear. It's zigzags. We all want to live life in the fast lane. The truth is we live it in the road under construction lane. So I hadn't graduated UCLA for more than a year. Actually, it was about 9 months before some guy stuck his hand in a tumbler and pulled out my birth date. And unfortunately, it was the 10th number or the 10th birth date he pulled out. So I went from being a war protester, a hippie, a full-time law student, to being a soldier. And that was a big detour. And that's the type of detours you get. Later on in life, I had a mentor or a lawyer on the other side, and we had two jerks for clients. My client was probably jerkier than his client, but they were both generally jerks. And when we got done, the lawyer on the other side said, boy, you really handled yourself well, given our two clients were not the best clients in the world. You ought to know, I just got appointed the CEO of the LA Olympic Organizing Committee. Would you like to come and work for me? Another detour I took. Then another friend of mine, one of my partners, said, you know, I teach. I won't mention the school at which he taught, but he goes, I teach, but this year I have some things that are going to take me out of the country. Would you take over my classes? So I took over his classes, and I've been teaching there for 20 years now. And the last thing I can tell you is that I had two friends. As you get older, you meet friends who are a little bit more influential, and each was a county supervisor. And I used to tell them that I didn't like politics. To me, Democrats were people who never took economics in school, and Republicans were people who were born without hearts. So they sort of challenged me, and they said, you think you can do better? Go ahead. And they put me on a commission, and I served on a commission. And this is all to say to you that my goal of becoming the world's best lawyer took little things. I took hiatuses from doing that. I became an Army captain. I became a county commissioner. I became a law professor. I became an Olympic official. And all those things are things that divert you off your path. And instead of looking at them as diversions, instead of looking at them as maybe detours that are taking you away from things, look at them positively. I look at my life now, and I look at those things that I did, and if I was still a hippie, I would probably say, oh, wow, what a trip. It really was a trip to do these other things. And so when I look at my career now, and people say, tell us about your career as a lawyer, I'm not sure I really have a career as a lawyer. I have a career of all these other things that I've done. And so I guess my word of encouragement, and what I would say to you is UCLA, and the education you get here opens you up to so many things. You can do so many things. You can experience so many things. And that's what a UCLA degree gives you. don't look at them as diversions. Look at them as pluses. Embrace them. Enjoy them. It's what makes life interesting.
So it's very interesting how much serendipity there is in all of your stories and how that life took different turns that you didn't necessarily anticipate. But I think for the audience it might be really interesting to also sort of try to see whether we can influence this future in a little bit more of a planned way. And so I was wondering whether, since I imagine that several of you are in positions to hire people or to look at resumes, whether there's anything you could tell the audience from your perspective. What would stand out for you in a candidate?
You know, for me, I'm probably and have for a long time been, I think, fairly different for the things that I look for in a prospective employee. I believe, you know, I have a lot of opportunities to talk to high school kids about what they ought to get out of college. And I always tell them there's three things you need to come away from college with. Number one, you need to be able to communicate both orally and in written form. Number two, you need to be a critical thinker. Number three, you need to understand the principles of the civilization in which you live. And that also includes understanding all the influences on that culture now, because America is very different than it was when I was your age. And you need to understand all of that and all the people who live here now. That's your mission in college. The rest is just details. And when I look at prospective candidates, I assume that I can look at their resume, I know that they have the necessary background or experience, or they wouldn't be applying for the job in most cases. But I think that the best thing that you can have, and it's been mentioned by all of the other panelists here, is that an undergraduate degree in social sciences, particularly in sociology, prepares you, if you have interest in it, and many of you may not even be thinking about business, but I can tell you that the business world needs people like you. Because look at what's happened on Wall Street over the years, and I think it's the tunnel vision of people who are undergraduate majors in accounting and then go get a master's degree in business, and those are the people who sit in the business world today. At the end of the day, the business world is the people business. And if you don't understand people, then you're not going to get anything done. And as has been said, that is what your degree has prepared you for. So if you want to go into the business world, you have a great preparation as an undergraduate. Go get work experience and then get a master's degree in business if that's your choice. But when I talk to candidates, when I'm looking for somebody, I'm more interested in what kind of books they read, what they do in their personal life, their volunteer life. Again, as I said, in the business world, if you've made it this far, if you've gotten through our HR department and they've screened you and they're satisfied that you have the other requisite qualities, but I look for what kind of a person you are, what kind of a communicator you are, how will you get along with others, what kind of those personal communication characteristics would you bring to a very dedicated team that I have at Toyota. And I mean, you know, we're in the business world, and I don't think that there's an undergraduate business degree in my department, because I think, as I said, the business world is the people business, and that's what you guys are all well prepared for.
Do you have sociology majors in your department?
I have one, for sure.
Okay. Mitch?
I'd have two things I'd say, one on a micro level and one on a macro level. Micro, how you present yourself, how you dress, how your resume looks, are there any misspelled words? And probably for me, I'm as a passion, I've always been a writer. So I look for really good writers. Writing is it's an art form. And there's not a lot of people who write. By the way, in that, I say that in my career, from a young person to now, somebody once told me nobody writes thank you notes anymore. You know, like you go on an interview and then you leave. Sometimes people just don't do it. And I always wrote thank you notes, not in an email, but actually hand wrote them. And I still do that, and it freaked people out. Because why would a guy like me be writing thank you notes? I mean, it really does freak people out. But there are three kinds of people that you write thank you notes to. Those that helped you, those who kind of tried to help you, and those that didn't help you at all. And it's the ones that didn't help you at all that when they get it, now they're going to help you the next time. And they're not used to getting, and they think that when they get the thank you note, did I do anything? I didn't do anything. And then they feel guilty, and then they try to help you. So writing thank you notes, how you present yourself, how you dress, making sure that everything is buttoned up when you present yourself on paper. That's the representation of who you are. So that's one part. The second part on a macro level is, I was actually just saying this to somebody, a young person the other day, who's working at Hulu. It's actually my son. He's been promoted very quickly. He's a manager there, and he's going to be 25 on June 1st. So he's a young guy, and he's making a lot of money. He's working for a very hot company, for those of you who know what Hulu is. And he's seeing the world. They're sending him everywhere. And he's working with very big corporations like LG and Samsung and Microsoft and all these companies. And he was disappointed in working for a person that he's now reporting to that he hadn't been reporting to before. And he was spoiled because he was reporting to a really good person before that. And I was pointing out to him that he shouldn't be focused on, and I'm saying this to all of you, he shouldn't be focused on who he's reporting to and the politics of all that. And he should be thinking about what can he do for the company, and in turn do something that's really different, that distinguishes him, but not so much for himself, but for the company. What is it that each of you have? Because if you look around this classroom, there's a lot of people in this classroom, you think of, at this time in history, all of you are really faced with a challenge. It's a very difficult place out there to go find a job. You all know that. Because not only is it young people who are coming out of college flooding the market, that's how it used to be normally, just new college graduates coming in. But now you're faced with people, even in my generation, looking for work. And so it's a very flooded place. What is it about you that distinguishes you? What is it that you've done that is different than anybody else? Those are the kinds of things as an employer that I always look for. How do you stand out? What is it about what you do makes a difference to make those around you better, to help the company be better? Those are the kinds of things I look for.
I would add a couple of elements here. I think really understanding what it is that you love to do and what it is that you're good at is really, really important, because in the process of presenting yourself, that will come through. When you're trying to please someone else in an interview, it's really easy to get off base. It's really easy to lose your balance and to not make a good impression. But when you're coming from a place that really is where your heart lives, where your passion lives, where your interests are, where your talents are and your skills and abilities are, you don't lose your place. Because you're coming from a truth, you're coming from a center place that can keep you whole, whether you're in the interview or you're with your friends or you're out in the world. And that balance, that place of being with yourself and what you're good at is actually very attractive to others, because people are looking for people who are passionate, who really care about the quality of their work, who care about what they're doing, who really are thinking about it, are curious about it, are interested about it, not people who are trying to perform as if any of those things are true. And the second thing I'll say to you is, and this is true in a competitive market and in a not so competitive market, if you can't find the opportunities right away, the first thing to do is to find the arenas and to start to volunteer and find opportunities where you can be engaged with the kinds of people, the kinds of organizations, and the kind of work that you want to do. And it doesn't matter if you're just, carrying coffee, typing, or, reading mail or entering calendar or giving advice. Once you're in the arena, you start to make an impression about who you are and what you're capable of. And that gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your interests and to start to become indispensable. The most important part of my career and the most important the ways in which I was given new opportunities was I always, wherever I was, I looked for where there was a need that I could fill, and the need that I could fill that I really wanted to do. And it was very easy in those circumstances for me to become somebody who was attractive, who other people wanted to have. So it's really, and by the way, I believe that's true about building a career. Over the course of a career, what you're constantly doing is looking for what you're good at, how you can become important and valuable to others because you believe in the work that it is that you're doing and that you want to be doing in the future.
Actually, I agree 100% with that. I think the key thing to me is when people do more than they're expected. I've got a 17-year-old daughter, not at home, I'm divorced, but she's applying for college now, and I keep telling her, make your story, make your resume and your essay show that you want to do more than just what's expected of you. And I tell that to the associates who come into the law firm, and I try and spot that in the resumes. I do look for sociology people in the resume, so I'm tired of history people and poli-sci people, so when I do get a resume, I kind of look to see what else they're doing. I agree with the passion, but recognize your passion can be expressed in different ways. I love traveling. In fact, tomorrow I got to go to Spain. But I've probably been to 70 countries, and I'm not an airlines pilot. I'm not a travel agent. So what I did was I got into a part of the law that allowed me to travel, and I was able to enjoy my passion and at the same time being a lawyer. I have a friend who she loves sports, but she wasn't very good at sports, but she loves sports. So she also wanted to become a producer, actually. She has 7 Emmys now, and she produces sports shows, and she loves it. She says it's the best job in the world. She not only gets to be a producer, which she wants to do, but she gets to be involved with sports. She says the best thing, she gets to go into the locker rooms and see all the athletes naked. So, I mean, you know, she has the life she really likes. But the main thing is to find something, again, where your passion is, and then because it's your passion, you do something extra. You take it the extra step, and that's what gets you noticed. I can tell you a quick war story. There's a book called Martindale-Hubbell in Law, and in the back of the book is a law digest, and it summarizes the laws, you probably know that, summarizes the law of all the different states. Well, when I was a young associate, I found out that I was going to be called into a partner's office, and the partner was going to ask me to research the law of different states for the Uniform Commercial Code, which probably you don't know about, but it's a statute. So I went to the back of Martindale-Hubbell, memorized the states and what the UCC was in those states, and then when the partner called me into his office and said, I have an assignment for you, here's what you want to do. He says, I need to know what the UCC filing requirements are, I still remember, in the state of Iowa. And I said, well, I happen to know what they are in the state of Iowa. And I just gave it. The guy's mouth dropped, and he said, oh, wow, you must be a UCC expert. Well, I really wasn't a UCC expert. I looked at it 5 minutes before I went into the office. But the point was, he didn't know that. And he thought, uh-oh, here's somebody that's pretty knowledgeable. Maybe I don't want to get rid of them. And that's, you make yourself, as you said, indispensable, valuable. And you do that, and then you're going to have a really successful career.